Ken, so for all of you know that I'm working this YouTube channel again, and I'm going to build it up, and you're going to help because you're going to. I know I got to say all the stuff that everybody else does. You're going to hit the like button. Or I could be like some of these other YouTube people, smash the like button, and get the YouTube algorithm going. But we're going to be talking health with Ken on a regular basis. So any health questions you have, Scientist Ken will answer them. So in the comment section below for the next show, make sure you write down any health concerns or any health, health issues that you have, things that you were thinking of taking for health, vitamins, minerals, whatever it might be, and Ken and I will answer them. So today I want to talk about the mind-health connection. Okay. So Ken, I did a session today of Psych-K. Have you ever played around that?
No.
That's Bruce Lipton's thing.
Oh, I know Bruce Lipton, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it's all about really understanding the deep programming that you are carrying forward from your parents, nonstop and manifesting, right?
That can be ugly.
It was ugly, I got to tell you. And I'll share this with you, and I'll share this with everybody else. I learned something today that kind of blew me away on many different levels. I have manifested ailments over my lifetime because my parents were hypochondriacs. My parents had lots of ailments, right? So I've manifested ailments just so I can beat them and prove that I'm not my parents. So my mother, for instance, had stomach issues. What did I manifest as a kid? Stomach issues, okay? When I moved to Boulder in Colorado, I was able to finally beat my stomach issues. My mother had a bad back. What did I manifest? An L4, L5 that blew, okay? My father had double vision. He had MS. He had double vision. So what did I manifest? A vision issue. It got really ugly on the call when I started realizing how much I have spent my life manifesting things just so I can beat them, just so I can prove to people who are dead that I'm not them. And it was weird. It was a very strange day because last night I did the hyperbaric chamber, and sometimes on my cell phone, because I got the blue blocking screen device on it, sometimes it's like you can see shadows on the letters, right? Probably because it's a double screen, right? So there's one screen on top of another screen. So I started getting a little paranoid. And then I asked the girl who was there, and she goes, yeah, I see the same thing. I'm like, all right, I feel better. So I'm driving today after going through this session, and on my Jeep, I noticed the 88 degrees was a little blurry underneath it. It kind of shadowed underneath because it was way tucked up in the corner. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, my eyes, and I'm thinking man, mind health, manifesting parents stuff, right? Looking at my cell phone, went into a T-Mobile store. I had my Larry David moment today. So I went into a T-Mobile store and I asked this random guy, hey man, do you see any blurriness on my screen? And he goes, no, it's fine. I'm thinking okay, to him it might be fine, right? And then I asked a friend, and my friend saw the same blurriness and the same thing. And I realized that I took myself down a path until finally I whipped out the answer grid on the computer, and I was fine. Because that thing will make anybody nauseous, even with perfect 20/20 eyesight. That thing was never, you look at, it's clear, and then you look at one corner and you focus on that one corner, it's a little lighter, and then it finally gets darker, right? Because that thing is just, it's lines, it's grids, but there was nothing weird about it at all. I did 18 to 20 inches away, and I realized at that moment how much the mind can manifest a physical trait, because I probably had digital eye strain from work this week. My cell phone has like I said, a glass on top of glass, which can make certain texts probably blurry, right? Because right? Give it shadow.
I have the same thing.
You got the same thing. And then LEDs in the car's 7 years old. So, and it's moving and shaking and it comes and goes. And if I really had vision problems, that blurry vision would be there all the time. Those double vision would be there constantly. It wouldn't just all of a sudden come and then disappear for an hour and a half, right? And then come back when I'm thinking about it. So what do you make of that mind body health connection? And what is you, based on a lot of scientific research that you've done and everything else, how we, and Joe Dispenza talks about this and a lot of other people talk about this, why does our minds just take off and just, you know, it's like we'll go from 0 to 60 and we'll become like unbelievably paranoid and scared to death. And it's all rational what we're doing and what we're seeing, but why does our mind take over like that?
Oh, it's a common thing that happens. I think we go back into default. And part of that is when you get fear or doubt, you go back into that fight and flight response where the amygdalas click it back into the, the motor and vision centers and the other centers. And then the frontal lobes go neutral. And then you're in trouble. Because if you don't have those frontal lobes kicked in, you're going, you're not up to speed. But it's just not. You can also manifest the states of your emotional states that your parents have. But sometimes, like I had a past relationship where I managed to manifest my parents' relationship in another relationship.
How
which
so?
was which is really bad because their relationship was not that good. And then all of a sudden, I just realized, holy, whatever, I've just become my parents, or at least one side of the parent relationship. And it was just like, oh no, well, that's over. Of course, that relationship ended, but because but at least I got free. But yeah, I mean, you have to be careful that you just don't fall in the same rut that you had as a child, or you start sounding like your parents and being your parents, because that can happen easily. It's certainly happened to me on more than one occasion.
It's really interesting when it happens. I mean, because this session today was really interesting in ways that and it's funny too. I was doing this test. I go blurry vision, and I would look at the letters, blurry, clear vision, okay, and then the letters will get clear. And I was thinking, like, this is really interesting, because once again, if you have bad vision, it's blurry the whole time. It's like, it's not like all of a sudden it like gets blurry for a second and then it's good for 10 minutes, right? It's a mess. It's like, so what is it when we, and it's interesting you said that too, because I also went deep into this session today and realized that I've protected my heart. I don't feel from my heart. Like I have good friendships with people, right? But I don't feel from my heart because I never got that love from my parents. My parents were so wrapped up in paranoia and fear and pills and just my parents were prescription drug junkies, both of them. So they were numb all the time. So it's interesting where I have repeated relationships the same as you, like love relationships, haven't been love relationships. They've been like relationships. They haven't been like deep love. There's no vulnerability in any of those relationships. And I'm basically mirroring, my father's behavior pattern towards me. My father showed me absolutely no vulnerability whatsoever and couldn't care less if I was around. And my mother was, clinically depressed. So yeah. She was vulnerable at one moment, and then she'd punch, and then she'd throw a fucking dish at my head the next minute, right? So it'd be like, incoming. And so I learned, and then my brother passed away when I was a kid. So I learned not to open up. And it's amazing how we're repeating things. And this is something that I got out of this session. We will repeat things over and over again to prove to our parents that we're worthy of whatever it might be, love or success, money, health, whatever it is, and everything. And this is something where I started diving deep into like Joe Dispenza's work too, because Joe Dispenza cures people of being deaf, of being blind, of cancer, and all of it stems to the way they were programmed from their parents. And we're working on so much programming from our parents. What have you done to recognize that programming? And what have you done to really, do you have like a checks and balances when it comes up and shows itself?
Well, actually, it usually just creeps up on you until it hits you on the side of the head like a 2x4. But you got to remember, on the other side of the relationship, they're probably acting out their own parental problem, right? So it's just not one one mental problem, it's another mental problem where they, where you're mutually doing this thing. And yeah, and actually, many times bad vision is due to like traumatic events. The child doesn't want to see because it sees the traumatic event or the traumatic situation it's in, and so one of its ways to get out is to like reduce vision. So that's, especially a lot of nearsightedness, that's actually a case of what's going on there. So yeah, a lot of people's health problems and vision problems or hearing problems or whatever problems, relationship problems, just spring from like bad parenting, which unfortunately is all too common.
It's interesting you said that, because vision is, if you look and you research macular degeneration, the percentage of people that lose, the percentage of people that are actually affected by it are very slim. I mean, really, really slim. Most people live through their life having normal vision and having normal to just whatever vision, but most people don't lose any type of vision whatsoever, right? Unless they're really grossly physically in fucked up shape, bad shape in every which way. But most people, when you really go and you read it and you break it down, it's nothing. It's something that you just go with and live with. It's interesting because your central vision is you refuse, and if you want to talk about the way you just said it, your central vision is a failure to see what's in front of you.
You got to remember, all that comes from the brainstem. If you look at like a lot of the controls for the vision, whether it's focusing, eyelid control, there's several nerves that come directly out of the brainstem to the eyes. And so when you're dealing with vision problems due to emotional things, you're dealing, the brainstem is like the reptile fish brain, right? The
Right.
ancient ancestors. And so when you have problems there due to that, it's because of some pretty profound things that deal with really core issues. And they're not things that are going to be registering even in your cognitive or your emotional brain, which is, your primate brain and your mammalian brain. This is more like the reptilian brain, the fish brain. And so if you got problems there, it's you can have problems there, and many of us do, but that's a really profound, that takes special people to really get in there and fix that, because it's a deep primitive thing. It's also, of course, a thing that manipulation of advertising and other things go for, because they aim for the very primitive basic urges and needs to manipulate people to buy products.
Well, there's a guy in Boulder. Do you want me to hook you up with him? He's a
Oh, sure.
He's a body worker that a friend of mine hooked me up with, and we did some work over the phone. Now, I'm very open to anything. He made me press points in my eyes and other points, and I could tell you I was so toxic the next day. It was unbelievable, the headache I had. I'm not a headache person. I do not get headaches ever. It's like if I get a headache, it's so rare, and I don't take anything for it if I get it. But this guy happens to be in Boulder, and he was trippy to work with, Ken. I'll hook you guys up, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
He's reasonable, and he goes, like he closes his eyes and he's rolling them back in his head, it's like, and he said the same exact thing. He goes, trauma. You hit your head so hard. How did he know this? I hit my head so hard. When I hit my head hard? When my mother tried to commit suicide when I was 5.5, and I was in the car, and it was a 67 Pontiac Catalina, and she went 65 miles an hour into a parked car, and I broke the seatbelt and went from the back seat right into the windshield so hard that you can see. I remember the broken windshield where my head was, and then I flew back into the thing. I hit my head so hard and never got it realigned or adjusted in there. So now I'm starting to do some work with him, and I'm going to go down to Miami and work with him
they do that cranial adjustment. It's amazing what cranial adjustment can do. It's really something you should do, but they got to get their hands on your head and do the manipulation.
Yeah, because that's where it's coming from. It's like you hit your head. It's trauma, and our trauma is so deep inside us, and that's what I think a lot of people don't want to face. They don't want to face that trauma, so we medicate. We medicate as a society. And you and I both know, you got an eye issue, it's emotions in your liver. I mean, or it's something in your head and you want to cure the eye issue. Sure, you can go take things for it, but you got to cure the emotions and you
No,
got to cure the liver. And
you
you
got to
have,
go to the source. You got to get
yes,
to that source and dig it out and then dispel it and then move forward, because covering the symptoms isn't going to give you anything. And that's what allopathic medicine is. They're going to give you this medicine and that medicine, cover the symptoms, but they're not going to get to the root cause of the problem. You've got to get to the root cause of the problem to fix it. You can cover symptoms for the rest of your damn life, but it's not going to do anything for you.
no, and a lot of people cover symptoms. It's interesting too. Do you know my brother has polyvera?
I'm
So
not quite sure what that is.
nobody knows what that is. That's like being struck by lightning in New York City. Okay. That's how hard it is. It is a rare form of a blood cancer that takes your red platelet count up over 1 million. So it makes your blood super thick. So you're prone to heart
So you
attack.
got to take, you have to give blood a lot of times, right? To stay alive.
Right.
Donate blood.
He's got to get rid of his blood, but he's also on there's a chemo drug that they put him on that makes his blood count go down. So it's normal now. So, but the thing is, if you think about, the connection of where that came from, I could trace it back to my parents on that level as well, too. That was something that was purely brought in and purely manifested on a very deeper level. And you're so right. It's like Western medicine or just regular doctors. And this is the problem with so many people on, you have high cholesterol. Okay. So you take a cholesterol or statin or whatever you're taking for it, but you're not going to the root of it. And you're just never going to heal anything by going to the root of it. And the root of it, unfortunately, for a lot of people, is to look in the mirror and get deep with your programming and really deep with the loops and the shit that's going on in your brain, and literally getting a lobotomy of your brain and your emotions and connecting to it, because we are just, the human body, and this, is so amazing on how it reacts to emotional feelings. Like when I was going through the paranoia feeling today, where do you think I felt it? Right in my stomach. I started sweating. I was nauseous. I was like, and it's like you could feel it. And that's what people are doing consistently to their bodies. They're constantly not in touch with their emotions because they don't want to face their emotions. They're in relationships that are not good. So many things.
Yeah, and a lot of this stuff passes from generation, right? The same now in today's world, sometimes we can get rid of that. But it goes back even further. I mean, if you look at all the retarded religions that people have on this planet, how did most of them come to it? I mean, most of them were converted to their religions through violent actions of some group. And that's virtually all the religions that rule the world today. That's where it came from. They were converted unto the new way, right? And usually it is pretty nasty and violent to the people. And so that trauma comes back. And then you think about, the militaries, most people became part of this nation or that nation, not because they wanted to, but because, somebody's military walked through the land and, now that you were this nation. So you have those traumas too. Historical, religious traumas going back centuries. And then a lot of that stuff, you got, personal traumas that run up to the family, and where did it all come from? And that's a problem. But, there is something you can do. You can stop the transmission of that bullshit trauma to the next generation.
How do you do that? I mean, and I know you can, but what's your perspective on it?
I think it's frontal lobe activity. I think
how do you do that? How do you activate that?
I think you have to come to the conscious awareness that you actually have this trauma, that it's a real thing. And then you go to people that can help you deal with it, right? There's people out there that can help you deal with it. And flush it out. Probably help your kids deal with it. And so to flush that out, so it doesn't continue into future generations, because it's there pretty much in every family in the United States, or maybe even around the world, to a lesser or greater extent. And in that collective karma, there's a lot of spiritual things which are a little woo-woo, but which is another discussion that you can go through. Or there's a lot of these people that can do spiritual clearings. You get attachments from the past, right? Past lifetimes, past events, past this, that. So you got to remember, sometimes you bring the whole junk into your this lifetime from a past lifetime. So it can, yeah. So there are people that can help deal with that. I've had those people work with me in that skill. So unfortunately, there's the ones that are really good are around now. They were kind of much older than I was at the time. So, but that's another problem that people do. You don't have to deal with bullshit this lifetime. You got bullshit from other lifetimes. So it can be a problem.
I've worked with people like that too. It's pretty intense. It's like you have to just, when you do that type of work, you just have to say fuck it and go for it. Because if your rational mind kicks in, you start thinking like, what did that person just say? You know, it's like, because it's out there, but it's not. I mean, they tap into something. Look, I've been able to see spirits and ghosts since I was a kid. All the time. I mean, hotel rooms. I remember I was in a hotel room in Paris. First time I was in Paris, I couldn't sleep all night long because the ghosts were talking French to me. And my girlfriend at the time, she goes, why are you talking in French? Because they won't shut up. She goes, who? I said, I don't know, but they're talking French to me all night long. They're driving me crazy. And it's like, we can tap into that when we choose to tap into it. And when we tap into that type of work, we have to not be afraid of it, because that's the real work. You know, that's the stuff that strips you down to your core and gets rid of the programming that you have, and being on that self-aware. I think I told you the last time I'm on my hikes now, I've had my dead mom talk to me, right? Did I tell you that?
Yeah. No. Yeah, that stuff happens. People need to, get out of that total, materialistic, rational mindset, because it's not relevant to reality. I mean, if you really want to go in there, I mean, it's frankly, all the religions are pretty junky. I mean, Hinduism to a certain extent has certain value, but even there, it's full of like problems. And so, yeah, there really isn't any solution in that zone other than the solution that you find and you got to do it. See, it's up to you. It's taking control of your health, and you got junk, man. Get rid of that junk. Because if you're going to deal with it now, or you're going to deal with it in another lifetime or whenever, and it's better just to deal with it now and get rid of it to the extent that you can. And then you can move on with a clean slate or a functional slate or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, if you don't realize that stuff is real, then you will have to at some point, at some lifetime, have to deal with it. So better sooner than later.
Yeah, and it's funny, that stuff is so real, because when I was on that hike, my mom started talking to me, and it was my mom. There was nobody that talked to me like that in my life. And you know what I did? Instead of, I was listening to my music, let my music play, let her voice come in, and I was literally going for it. I just started talking to her out loud. I could care less who heard me, and then spirit, God came in and started talking about some things that I am not seeing in my life, that are clear right in front of me. And it was like, no way in the world that was me, because it was on such a different level. But it really is you, because you're tapping into source. So you're tapping into something. And then I tested it, right? Because, as a New Yorker, even though I lived in Boulder and I lived in Los Angeles and I lived around the Erie ferries, I said, fine, all right. That seemed real, and I literally said that to myself. All right, that was real. But you know what? Where's my dad? Because if you're all coming in right now, my father's got to be around the corner as well. So show me a sign. I'm on a bridge, I'm overlooking the water, and all of a sudden, right, I hit shuffle play on my Spotify. I got 2,000 songs. Mike and the Mechanic, The Living Years come on. That's the song that makes me remember my father. I wasn't there the morning my father passed away. And then all of a sudden a voice said, look up. I looked up, I felt the energy of my father right there. I stood there and I was just like, I was like, all right, I'm good. It's like, I'll go with this moment. I said, I don't need any more proof, because, we doubt the supernatural. We doubt the things that we can't grasp or put our thing around. So I went hiking again a week later, and I literally walked the same spot, and there she was again, and it started up all over again. Then my grandmother visited me during a massage last week. and it was just so bizarre. It's just so wild. The whole thing is so wild. But I think that's part of it, is that in order to cleanse, we have to tap into a higher being, a higher
Well,
self,
and
higher
they still
spirit.
have problems. Your parents, your grandparents, whatever, they still have problems they're working on. It's a lot harder to work it off from the other side than it is this side. You really can't work it off on the other side very well. So, I mean, if you're going to do that stuff, do it on this lifetime or do it in the living years. And also, that's another thing, being in nature. So many people, you're encased with an urban environment, and there's so many voices around you, so much psychic, energy of the other people's minds. And so when you get out of that urbanscape into, low population density wilderness, then you can hear the voices, right? It's not like a bunch of shouting. People really aren't designed to live in urban environments. I mean, spiritually, that is, but they do anyway because of the way the universe is. So here, at least. And so that's why getting out into nature is so important.
Yeah, I agree. My brother's coming tomorrow morning. I'm picking up the airport, and I'm gonna go have some little R-rated cafe that I go to in Buckhead. And then I'm gonna take him on that hike, and I'm gonna tell him mom's gonna show up. I said, be prepared. I said, be prepared to do some healing, and and be prepared to deal with some energy, right? So I'm gonna take him through the woods, because the woods here are this is the South. These woods are old.
Yeah, they're
It,
different. Yeah,
they're I've hiked in Boulder, and I've done,
Mhm.
I hiked in Boulder and did the foothills and everything else. And I did that hike, where you get dropped off in Gun Barrel, and then you go and you
Yeah.
hike the Flatirons, right? And I didn't have this stuff to speak to me. I did in Sedona. There was a lot of energy down there in Sedona, but I found Boulder very new, and I didn't feel that energy. I felt that energy in other parts of Boulder. There was a lot of spirituality. There was a lot of spiritual connections in Boulder. But the woods here, these woods are these are 5, 6, 700-year-old woods you're walking through. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the South. The South is old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those woods are different too. They're not like the open woods to the west. Those things are like almost green jungles. You step off the trail and you're gone.
Oh yeah, you can get lost off. If you step off the trail now, like in the wintertime, I can always see. If I get high enough, I can see where the river is. I got lost the other day coming home. I was like, oh, this doesn't feel right, because when you're in the woods here, they are so thick. You go the wrong direction, you're 5, 6, 7 hours in there. You can go around in circles because it all looks alike, because it's so dense. And there's in this hike that I go on, there's a bamboo forest, which is bizarre. Like all of a sudden you go through these like thick woods into this thick bamboo forest. And that had a lot of voices going on in that area too, because that's been around. Those bamboo trees, they were not short little bamboo trees you see out west. These things were 50 feet high, going up to the ceiling. And birds are also really spiritual. Like today I was sitting outside, and this bird kept looking at me, this red cardinal. He just kept looking at me, talking, staring at me. He decided to fly 5 feet from me and eat out of the bird feeder. And he just kept looking at me, talking to me. And I was just like, man, do we know each other from another, it's like, because you're showing no fear of me whatsoever. I mean, none. And that's another thing. Animals are spirits also.
Oh yeah, they all go through the whole, the world is a giant tapestry. It's all interwoven. There really isn't any, you can't just pull out some threads and not affect the rest. So, and that's what people don't understand. You just can't, so much in modern society, Western society, it's so sterile and box-like, especially on the modern conception of things. And that's not the way it is. Everything mixes together. Everything's woven together in reality. And it's not so cut and dried as the Western mentality, especially the progressive mentality. That's the worst. The ancient cultures like the Chinese and the Indians, right? They see the cyclical nature of things, right? You have the Yuga ages, Satra Yuga, Kali Yuga, they go through, they see things as a cycle. not just the seasons, but civilizations as well as lifetimes, right? So they see that. Whereas the West, they have this idea that things started down here, which has a certain bit of the Judo-Christian Islamic tradition, and then just heading up, onwardless, like a straight line up into something, but a graph line, straight up forever, right? Oh, we're just going to get better and better and better. Well, that's not really the way the world works. It works as cycles, right? Summer, winter, summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter, spring. The orbits of the planets, or the orbit of the sun around the galaxy, or the rise and fall of civilizations and cultures. I mean, this is just endless numbers of interwoven cycles. And that whole rigidness that people think, it's got to go this way, or, and you see it like in the I don't know, what do you say? I'm saying that on Sangria Saturday, hysteria, the hysteria of the wokeism. They're just like the prohibitionists, like in the 1920s. Of course, now we're in the teens in the 1920s. Now we're in, a century later. Remember the prohibitionists? They used to, we're going to make you better. We're going to shut down your bar. We're going to smash those, barrels of beer and those bottles of liquor, right? And we're going to make you better because we're going to tell you what to do. You're not going to drink. You're going to do this, right? Well, that whole stupid mentality has come back again. It comes back in a different form, but the mentality is the same. Now it's about, the racial thing and, and the sexual thing, but it's the same insane, hysterical bullshit of people who are really mentally ill in the head, frankly, and need to deal with their shit before they go around telling other people what to do with their lives.
Oh, it's, the marijuana thing, it's like, just legalize the shit already. It's the same. It's like, there are states that still think it's evil. It's evil. We'll never marry, Meanwhile, they're like selling it. They sell it in Georgia, under the Farm Bill, and they call it's hemp, and it's called something else, right? But yet I can walk into a health food store down the street from me and go buy a joint, right? And go get some drops and some gummy bears. And it's like, but it's called something else. And that's how they get around it. The whole thing is just, and we're not going to get into the whole, masks and everything else and the whole control issue, but it's just, man, history just repeats and repeats and repeats. Anyway, we've gone long. So
that's right.
We said we're going to go short. This was short for Ken and I. So to find out more about Ken, you can go to c60purplepower.com. I'll put the link down below. There's a discount code there for you. It's a fantastic way to heal what's going on inside your body. We'll have Ken on weekly. So if you have any questions on health, spirituality, the other side, whatever it might be, let's, get it. And then we'll do some live shows on YouTube as well. And we'll get you guys to communicate and talk with us and really go down a path of a deeper understanding of your health and spirituality in your mind. So thanks, Ken.
Well, I'm glad to be on. And just the whole discussion and living a life, because we push a little bit beyond just, simple health situations, but into that spiritual land, but not into, the rigid functionality of all those institutions which haunt our past.
Oh, they haunt our tests so much. Anyway, hang out. I'll say goodbye to you properly. The rest of you, share the video, give a thumbs up, go to c60purplepower.com. It's in the link down below, and support this channel, because we're going to build it up because we believe that there's a consciousness of people that really want to grow and take back control of the world that we left. And we're going to do some cool things. Anyway, Ken, hang out, and I will talk to you all later.